here I am, aimless. It's been over a year since I had a target to shoot at. I went trigger happy last time, you saw. Thought I could hit a bullseye, but missed all my shots at the home stretch. You know, I could just retcon it, forget my misfires, and go back to the good old days of Shrek Swamp Card Speedway. Or I can improve. Hello everybody, my name is
Biggie!
Let's rock and stroll to my old friend Adobe. Oh, it expired. Let me do my hair first. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Once a licensed 6th-gen game that garnered a mixed reception, has since aged into a cult classic. Solid gameplay and great music, and tons of great callbacks to the show's golden era. Many call it the SpongeBob game. Kinda like how many say Hit and Run is the Simpsons game. And since SpongeBob is a franchise that, at this point, needs no introduction, with such an iconic cast of characters with very clever writing, and overall a fun, entertaining show that holds up very well, at least in earlier seasons. But it's still worth watching just for the first 3 seasons alone. Like a lot of other SpongeBob games at the time, like Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, Battle for Bikini Bottom also got a handheld port. So without further ado, let's get into SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom on GBA. Shoo. So the game opens up with the titular SpongeBob theme, along with the Vicarious Visions logo. Now one thing I found out when researching for this video was that these guys were also responsible for the first ever SpongeBob game, The Legend of the Lost Spatula. Or Legend of the Lost, which looks interesting. So Vicarious. When's that SpongeBob dancing game come? Oh wait, I forgot. When they... Whoa! What's with the sudden jump in music? Way to hook you in the game, I suppose. So the story follows the plot of the console version, but with slight differences. Now, I understand having to cut out content so that the game can run on a puny Gameboy Advance, and I guess the part with SpongeBob and Patrick playing with the robot wasn't that important anyways, but I feel like showing more of the robot's wild behavior would have been nice, because here they're not really that threatening. Another difference I noticed is that SpongeBob meets up with Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Sandy, to which Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob that he must put a stop to the robots, rather than starting the game at SpongeBob's house like the console version. Doesn't necessarily make it better or worse, it's just worth mentioning. So as far as the story goes, while it does cut out some of the filler from the console version, it also makes the cutscenes feel less organic. I did mention that scene with SpongeBob and Patrick earlier, and while it doesn't add much to the main narrative, it does set the tone of the game, sort of like an episode of the show. While here, they just go straight to the point, and a lot of the charm and character of the console version is mostly lost in translation. And that brings me to the dialogue of the various NPCs in the game. They don't have that much of a SpongeBob flair to them, and most of the NPCs you come across are literally just tutorials. The console version did this too, but the banter felt more natural there, as if 2 characters were genuinely having a conversation. Have a listen.
Yes it is. But what's more important is that there are tikis and shiny objects just outside the windows.
Mr. Krabs, how can you think of money at a time like this?
Easy. I just clear my mind. Money, money, money. Now listen here, boy. You know that I'll give you golden spatulas if you bring me shiny objects.
Mr. Krabs? Why does your voice sound like that? Obviously, because of hardware limitations, a 3D platformer where you collect various items wouldn't work on the GBA, so instead, the game goes for a 2D platformer while simplifying the collectibles and adding a few puzzle elements here and there. Instead of collecting as many golden spatulas as you need, you must collect all the golden spatulas in each level to progress. And since you can't play as Patrick and Sandy in this version, the game can feel pretty repetitive at times. But credit where it's due, they at least try to add different enemies and puzzles in order to keep the level design more interesting. Now let's move on to SpongeBob, the sponge of this game. He might look like he's walking, but thankfully he's not as sluggish as you would think. He can also blow bubbles to stop robots or hit switches, and you can blow them up, left, or right. And you can play through majority of the game without even having to blow upwards. That should show you how useful that is. SpongeBob can also hover by inflating? I don't remember this being in the console version, but it does give SpongeBob a bit more airtime, considering his jumps are a bit on the heavier side. So overall, SpongeBob controls pretty alright, a bit on the slower side, but still pretty good. The game has the standard 3 hits and you're dead system, but like the console version, you can pick up an extra pair of square pants to regain your health, but the reward of going off track and finding golden underwear to permanently increase your health is unfortunately cut in this version. You also get to ride on the Seahorse Mystery. She can eat
enemies,
push heavy,
objects,
and also jump higher than SpongeBob can. Unfortunately, she's the only mountable in the game, making it feel a bit more repetitive, but at least it's a nice tribute to the show. Now, my biggest issue with the level design is the backtracking. Yep. The first chapter takes a more linear approach, which is completely fine, but some of the later levels are more open and have the spatulas spread out in different areas. And I kid you not, some of them took me over 15 minutes to finish. It doesn't help there's no map function to know where you're going, and you'll find yourself getting lost a lot of the time. So you'll end up walking past the same locations
over and over again.
I know I spoke positively about the controls earlier, but SpongeBob could really use a run button in this case. It doesn't help that you can't really see what's ahead of you, and that will lead to some leaps of faith. Until you have no more faith in this game. And that makes you rage quit, and listen to some Faith No More.
You know what? This is pretty epic.
I mean, you can check what's above and below you, but that requires you hitting the D-pad up or down, which sometimes works almost instantly, and other times takes a few seconds just to see, which can make the game feel even slower. The bomb puzzles. Don't even get me started. And speaking of the puzzles, they take forever to finish, and it gets really boring as a result. Alright, what's something good about this game? Well, I do think it looks nice. The animations are smooth, and there is a lot of good use of 2D... Wait, no. 2.5D sounds about right. Though it might just be me, but
Mystery.
looks 2D, which is a bit jarring, but it shouldn't ruin the look of the game. The backgrounds look nice and vibrant, which, although backtracking is a pain, at least your eyes get to look at something nice. However, the cutscenes can look a little boring, with mostly limited movement and occasional GIFs on loop that look out of style, but I've definitely seen worse on the console. The soundtrack is pretty good too, with some songs from the console version being mixed in pretty interesting ways. Take the Downtown Bikini Bottom theme, now put a xylophone melody over that,
Increase the tempo.
and presto. Now, you'll probably notice that some of the songs sound more Spyro-like. From the GBA, of course. I mean, this is Vicarious Visions, so I can definitely see the comparison. Wait, how do you see music? So yeah, I don't get SpongeBob vibes from some of these tracks, but they're still good, and at least half of them are quite memorable. Obviously, the music is more compressed due to GBA limitations, which make the sound quality a bit crappy, but as long as the compositions are good, then the music's fine in my book. Or my game. I'm questioning the script too much.
You're fired.
Now the bosses. They are mostly decent for GBA standards, albeit they get a bit repetitive after a while. Now, Robot Sandy stands out for being the only boss where you don't have to ride on mystery for. You gotta avoid her jumps and dodge her claw in order to bonk her head a few times. Simple, but it does the job. Robot Squidward is a pretty interesting fight. You gotta eat the conveniently placed bomb robots, then jump on his tentacle and spit them in his face. This also requires you to dodge his mediocre clarinet playing. Mediocre? Which comes from somewhere. His nose, perhaps? Overall, probably the most interesting boss fight of the bunch, and definitely more of a better inclusion than the rehydrated one. Seriously, locking him behind the multiplayer makes this remake a lot more of a dry experience. The Duplicatron is like the Squidward one, except the weak point is now in a stationary position? To be fair, fighting the Duplicatron is pretty cool, and it does remind me a little bit of that one machine from Rayman 2. Robot SpongeBob is the final boss, and is even more like the Squidward one, except this time you spit mechanical Krabby Patties that explode on his face.
That's it?
But I'd fight that any day over... Oh god. Now, you'd think this battle involves you running away from Robot Patrick, but the real battle is with the poor visibility and the zoomed in camera making it hard to focus on the boss. All the bombs you either gotta eat or jump on to activate. Half the time the bombs don't even hit him, and missing too much could lead you in a corner and cause you to die.
SpongeBob! Why?
Yeah, this boss kinda sucks. When you lose all your lives, you get a game over. What a surprise. Progress is saved via the password system, so the only consequence is that you gotta play the level all over again whether you boot up the game, or run out of lives during a level, but here they're pretty reasonable with them, so don't expect to get too many game overs. So you teach Plankton a lesson, he responds with, "Now you tell me?" and the game ends. I wish I was happy as SpongeBob here after finishing this. Battle for Bikini Bottom on GBA doesn't get my approval. It's a port that simplifies the base game to an underwhelming and even tedious experience, which is a shame because I used to really like this game as a kid. In fact, it's one of the first games I remember beating from start to finish. Yeah, I had a lot more patience back then. Now this episode got me thinking. What is another popular cartoon that has a lot of water in it? Wait, that's not a cartoon. Imagine getting cartoons mixed up with anime. Right, Luffy?
I'm gonna be the king of the pirates!
See? Even he agrees.
I'm gonna be the king of the pirates!
Yo! Don't give it up, Luffy! Don't give it up, Solo! Don't give it up, Nami! Don't give it up!
story goes, we find out about a treasure in the Grand Line, there's no doubt. The pirate whose eye is on it, he'll sing, I'll be king of the pirates, I'm gonna be king.